My husband told me I was too poor to sit with his family at his cousin's wedding. Then a waiter walked over, called me ma'am, and changed everything in front of the entire ballroom. Just before the ceremony, my husband leaned close and whispered, "Please don't embarrass me tonight." Then he glanced at the gold name cards arranged on the family table, picked up mine, and quietly moved it to a lonely chair beside the kitchen doors. That was the moment I finally understood. Nathan Ashford had never been embarrassed by my career. He had always been embarrassed by where I came from. My name is Madison Brooks. I grew up in a small 2-bedroom rental outside Charleston, South Carolina, where the porch sagged, the roof leaked every summer, and my mother somehow stretched one bag of groceries into meals for an entire week. Nathan grew up behind wrought iron gates. His family name opened doors at banks, country clubs, charity galas, and luxury wedding venues where the flower budget alone exceeded the price of my first car. We met while I worked the front desk at a boutique hotel downtown. Back then, Nathan seemed different. Thoughtful, charming. The kind of man who remembered exactly how I liked my coffee and smiled whenever he said, "I love how genuine you are." I believed him. I believed he admired the woman who knew how to build a life without depending on anyone. But after we married, genuine slowly became unsophisticated. My southern accent sounded too country. My dresses were too simple. My family was too ordinary. My mother, who spent decades cleaning office buildings until
arthritis ruined her.
niece was, according to Nathan's mother, Vivian Ashford, a lovely woman, just not exactly someone you'd seat with distinguished guests. For 2 years, I swallowed every insult. I smiled while Nathan's sister, Sloan, asked whether my childhood home had central air conditioning. I laughed politely when his father, Graham, joked, "Madison married so far above herself, she probably needs binoculars to see where she started." Nathan never defended me. After every gathering, he would gently touch my back and say, "They don't mean anything by it, but people always mean something when they keep using the same knife." That Saturday, we attended Nathan's cousin Caleb's wedding at Magnolia House, one of the most elegant venues in the Low Country. Towering white columns, ancient oak trees draped with Spanish moss, a ballroom glowing beneath crystal chandeliers and candlelight. The entire drive there, Nathan reminded me how important the evening was. "The Ashfords are practically hosting this wedding," he said while adjusting his cufflinks. "And please don't mention your job unless someone specifically asks." "My job?" I repeated. "At the nonprofit," he answered. "It confuses people." It never confused anyone. It embarrassed him. I served as executive director of a nonprofit, helping women rebuild their lives after financial abuse, divorce, unemployment, and family abandonment. I loved my work. Nathan preferred telling people I volunteered. Volunteering sounded elegant. Working for a living sounded common. And among the Ashfords, need was something to hide. When we entered the ballroom, Vivian looked me over from head to toe. I wore a navy silk dress I'd purchased on sale and altered myself. The pearl earrings belonged to my late mother. Vivian smiled thinly. "You look practical." Nathan squeezed my hand just a little too hard. "Thank you," I replied. At the seating chart, I found our names together. Nathan Ashford, Madison Ashford. For one brief moment, I thought maybe tonight would be different. Then Vivian appeared beside us, champagne glass in hand. "Nathan, sweetheart," she said pleasantly. We made one small adjustment. We needed another seat at table 1. "I'm sure Madison won't mind sitting closer to the service entrance." I stared at her. Nathan cleared his throat. "Mom, not now." Vivian smiled. "In protecting you from unnecessary gossip." "What gossip?" I asked quietly. Sloan stepped beside her wearing diamonds that sparkled beneath the chandeliers. "Oh, Madison, you know how family weddings are. Old names, old money, old friendships. You'll probably feel more comfortable at table 12. Table 12 stood beside the swinging kitchen doors. 2 photographers' assistants were already eating there. Nathan looked at me, not apologetically, warningly. "Madison, please don't turn this into an issue." I almost laughed. This wasn't about pride. I wasn't asking for a throne. I was asking to sit beside my husband. I'm your wife, I said quietly. His expression hardened. I'm asking you to be reasonable. Then he spoke the sentence I would remember for the rest of my life. You're too poor to sit at my family's table. He spoke softly, but not softly enough. A waiter carrying a polished silver tray stopped only a few feet away. His eyes shifted from Nathan to me. Something instantly changed in his expression. Recognition, respect, perhaps even surprise. I picked up the place card from table 12. My hands remained perfectly steady, even though my heart felt as though it had shattered. Nathan exhaled with relief. Good, he muttered. Just get through tonight. I turned toward the kitchen doors. I refused to let them watch me cry. That was when the waiter stepped forward. He looked to be in his late 50s, with kind eyes and an immaculate black vest. He lowered his tray, then looked directly at me. Loud enough for Nathan, Vivian, Sloan, much of the ballroom to hear. He said, Mom, we've been looking everywhere for you. The entire room seemed to freeze. Nathan frowned. Excuse me. The waiter never looked at him. Instead, he inclined his head respectfully toward me. Miss Brooks, he said, using the surname I had before my marriage. The final documents are waiting in the office. The ceremony cannot begin until you authorize the release. Vivian's smile disappeared. Vivian stared at the waiter as if he had suddenly spoken another language. What documents? She demanded.
The waiter remained calm.
The documents Miss Brooks requested this morning. Nathan stepped forward. You must have the wrong person. The waiter finally looked at him. I don't think so, sir. He turned back toward me. Ma'am, the attorney is waiting. The ballroom had gone strangely quiet. People who had been laughing moments earlier were now watching us. Sloan whispered, Madison, what is going on? I looked at her. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I simply said, You'll find out. Nathan grabbed my arm. What did you do? I pulled my arm away. Nothing that concerns you. His face changed. He was no longer embarrassed. He was worried. The waiter gestured toward the private hallway. If you'll follow me, Miss Brooks. I walked away from the table. Behind me, I could hear Vivian demanding answers. Nathan followed, but the waiter stopped him. I'm sorry, sir. Only Miss Brooks was authorized to enter. Authorized? Nathan repeated. By whom? The waiter gave him a polite smile. By owner. Nathan froze. The private office doors opened. Inside stood an attorney in a dark suit holding a thick leather folder. He looked at me and smiled. Miss Brooks, we have been waiting for you. I sat down. The attorney placed the folder on the desk. Everything is ready. Nathan appeared in the doorway. Madison, what is this? I looked at him. You wanted me to stay away from the family table tonight. So I did. But you never asked who actually owned the table. Nathan went pale. The attorney opened the folder. There was one final signature required before the wedding ceremony could continue. Nathan stepped closer. What does she own? The attorney looked at him. That is not my information to share. Vivian suddenly appeared behind him.
Nathan.
Come outside. But Nathan didn't move. His eyes stayed on me. For the first time since our marriage, he looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. I picked up the pen and signed my name. Madison Brooks. The attorney closed the folder. Congratulations, Miss Brooks.
Everything is officially transferred.
Nathan swallowed hard. Transferred from whom? The attorney looked toward me. From your late mother's estate. Silence filled the room. Nathan stared at me. Your mother. I nodded. My mother left more than a small house and a few pearl earrings. She had spent years quietly building something the Ashfords knew nothing about. The attorney opened another document. Your mother's company owns a controlling interest in Magnolia House. Nathan looked toward the ballroom. The wedding venue.
I nodded again. And tonight,
I had the authority to decide whether the ceremony could continue. Vivian suddenly looked terrified.
you can't do this.
I turned toward her. I don't want to stop the wedding. Her expression changed. Then what do you want? I stood up. I want respect. That's all I ever wanted. Nathan looked at me. Madison, please. But this time, I didn't listen because the woman they had moved beside the kitchen doors was no longer asking for a seat. She was the woman who had just decided whether the entire ballroom could stay open. And everyone was about to learn the truth. For several seconds, nobody said a word. Vivian stared at the documents on the desk.
Then she laughed nervously.
This is ridiculous. My mother never owned anything connected to the Ashfords. The attorney calmly corrected her. Your mother did not own the Ashford family business. She owned part of Magnolia House. A very significant part. Vivian's face went pale. Nathan looked at me. Why didn't you tell me? I looked directly into his eyes. Because you never asked. You spent years telling me where I belonged. You never cared enough to learn who I was. Nathan lowered his voice. Madison, I didn't know. You didn't want to know. That sentence silenced him. The attorney opened another file. There is something else. He slid a document across the desk. Your mother established a trust before she passed away. The trust was created specifically to protect women who were financially abandoned by their husbands. My heart tightened. That was the real reason my mother had worked so hard. She had spent years helping women quietly, women who had lost everything, women whose husbands had taken their savings, women who had been told they were worthless because they had no money. It was the same mission I had continued through my nonprofit. I finally understood. My mother had been preparing me for this long before I knew it. Nathan stared at the document. How much is the trust worth? The attorney looked at him. That information is private. Nathan looked embarrassed. But this time, nobody was laughing at me. A knock came at the door. The waiter entered. He placed another envelope in front of me. Your mother left this for you. I recognized the handwriting immediately. My hands began to tremble. I opened the envelope. Inside was a short handwritten letter. Madison, if you are reading this, then you have finally reached the moment when people will judge you by what you own. Please remember, money does not make you better than anyone, and being poor never made you less than anyone. Choose carefully what you do with what I left you. I closed my eyes. Tears filled them. Nathan watched silently. For the first time, he looked ashamed. I folded the letter, then stood up. The ceremony can continue. Vivian looked shocked. After everything they did to you, you are still allowing the wedding to happen. I looked at her. This wedding belongs to Caleb and his bride. Not you. No, Nathan. Not me. I will not destroy their happiness because your family treated me badly. The attorney nodded. A wise decision. We walked back toward the ballroom. Every conversation stopped when I entered. People stared at me. The same woman they had watched being sent to table 12 now walked beside the attorney. Nathan followed behind me. Vivian and Sloan remained silent. The waiter opened the ballroom doors, and then he said something that made everyone turn. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? The room became completely silent. He looked at me with respect. Please welcome the new majority owner of Magnolia House, Madison Brooks. A wave of shocked whispers spread across the ballroom. Nathan closed his eyes. Vivian looked like she might faint. Sloan dropped her champagne glass. And I stood beneath the crystal chandelier, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood something. They had spent years trying to make me feel small. They had mistaken my humility for weakness. And tonight, for the first time, they were going to learn the difference. The ballroom remained silent. Hundreds of eyes were fixed on me. I could hear whispers spreading from one table to another. Madison Brooks, she owns Magnolia House. Nathan stood near the entrance looking completely lost. His mother, Vivian, finally walked toward me. Her expression was no longer proud. It was nervous. Madison, please, we should talk privately. I looked at her. We have spent 2 years talking privately. And somehow your words always sounded different when nobody else could hear them. Vivian swallowed. I made the mistake. Sloan stepped forward. We all did. I looked at both of them. No, you didn't make one mistake. You made a choice. Again and again. Every family dinner. Every holiday. Every insult about my mother. My chest tightened. Every time you made Nathan ashamed to stand beside me, you chose to make me feel small. Nathan finally stepped forward. Madison, I am sorry. I looked at him. For what? He hesitated. For everything. That's not an apology. He looked confused. Then what do you want me to say? I want you to say the truth. Nathan lowered his eyes. I was ashamed of where you came from. The room became even quieter. I was afraid my family would judge me for marrying someone who didn't have money. I thought if I made you change, they would respect me. You didn't want them to respect me, Nathan. You wanted them to respect you. He had no answer. Then the wedding planner approached us. Miss Brooks, the bride and groom are ready. Smiled. Then let's begin. I walked toward the front of the ballroom. As I passed table 1, I noticed my original place card still sitting there. Nathan Ashford, Madison Ashford. I picked it up. For a moment, I looked at my married name. Then I placed it back on the table. I no longer needed that seat. The ceremony began. Caleb and his bride exchanged vows beneath a wall of white flowers. Everyone applauded, but I noticed Nathan never looked away from me. When the ceremony ended, he approached me again. Madison, can we go home together? I shook my head. Home? You mean the house where you told me I was too poor to sit beside you? His face fell. I don't want to lose you. You should have thought about that before you made me feel like I was something you needed to hide. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. Nathan, I spent years trying to become good enough for your family. Tonight, I realized I was never the problem. Vivian suddenly interrupted. Madison, if you leave this marriage, Nathan will lose everything. I looked at her calmly. What does that mean? She hesitated. Nathan has been using family money for years. I turned toward him. Is that true? Nathan said nothing. The attorney standing nearby opened his briefcase. Miss Brooks, there is one more document you should see. My heart stopped. What document? He handed me a sealed envelope. Your husband signed this agreement 3 years ago. I opened it. And as I read the first page, I realized tonight was not only about where I would sit. It was about what Nathan had been hiding from me all along. I stared at the first page. My name was printed clearly at the top. Madison Brooks. My hands went cold. I looked at Nathan. What is this? He didn't answer. The attorney spoke quietly. This agreement was signed shortly before your marriage. I looked down at the document again. It was a financial agreement, but there was something strange. My name appeared on it, yet I had never seen it before. I turned another page. There was Nathan's signature, and beside it, a signature that looked almost like mine. I felt my stomach drop. I never signed this. The attorney nodded. I know. Nathan stepped forward. Madison, please let me explain. Explain what? He looked around the ballroom. Everyone was watching. His mother looked terrified. His sister had stopped pretending to be confident. I turned toward Nathan. You knew about my mother's trust before we married. He looked down.
Yes.
The room erupted in whispers. I couldn't believe it. We knew. Nathan finally admitted, your mother contacted my father before our wedding. She wanted to make sure you were protected. Protected from what? Nathan didn't answer. The attorney opened another document. From financial manipulation. My eyes moved to Nathan. You were planning to take control of my inheritance. No. Nathan said quickly. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. Then tell me exactly what was supposed to happen. He looked broken. My father told me that if I married you, I would eventually have access to the trust. But your mother refused to transfer anything. So you married me because you thought I was going to inherit money? Nathan lowered his head. At first, the words hurt more than anything he had said that night. All those years, all those dinners, all those fake smiles, all those times he told me I was genuine. I had believed he loved me, but now I understood. He had seen my mother as an opportunity, and me as the key.
Vivian suddenly spoke.
Nathan was young. He didn't understand what he was doing. I looked at her. You knew too. She said nothing. That silence was enough. The attorney placed another document on the table. There is one final provision. I read it carefully. If Madison Brooks ever discovered that her husband had attempted to gain
unauthorized control of the trust.
the entire Ashford family agreement would be terminated. Nathan looked at me. Please don't do this. I closed the folder. You don't understand. I am not doing anything to you.
You did this to yourself.
I walked toward the center of the ballroom. Everyone moved aside. I looked at the people who had watched me being humiliated. Then I looked at Nathan. You told me I was too poor to sit with your family. You were wrong. I was never poor. I was simply surrounded by people who measured worth in money. The waiter stood near the ballroom doors. He smiled quietly. The attorney collected the documents. Then Nathan asked the question that changed everything. Madison, are you leaving me? I looked at my husband, the man I had once loved, the man who had spent years trying to make me feel small. Yes, I said, I am. Nathan closed his eyes. And for the first time, I walked away from him without looking back. Before I reached the doors, the attorney called my name. Miss Brooks, there is one more letter from your mother. I stopped. One more letter. He nodded. And this one was written specifically for the day you finally learned the truth about your husband. I stood completely still. One more letter from my mother. I turned around. The attorney opened his briefcase and carefully removed a small white envelope.
My name was written across the front.
Madison. My fingers trembled as I took it. I already knew my mother had trusted me, but I had never imagined she knew the truth about Nathan. I opened the letter. My dearest Madison, if you are reading this, then the man you married has finally shown you who he really is. I closed my eyes. Tears rolled down my cheeks. The letter continued. I met Nathan before your wedding. He came to see me alone. He asked questions about your future, not about your happiness, not about your dreams. He asked about money, about property, about the trust. That was when I became afraid. I looked at Nathan. He was staring at the floor. My mother had known. She had known from the beginning. I continued reading. I wanted to tell you everything, but you were in love, and I knew you would defend him. So I made a promise to myself. I would protect you without taking away your right to choose. The attorney placed another document beside the letter. I looked at it.
It was a legal agreement.
My mother had created it 3 months before my wedding. The agreement stated that no husband could ever control the trust, not Nathan, not his father, not anyone. I looked toward Vivian. She had gone completely silent. Then the attorney spoke. Your mother also left instructions for tonight.
Good night.
I repeated. He nodded. She predicted that the truth would eventually come out. My heart broke. My mother had known that one day I would stand in this exact room, surrounded by people who judged me. She had prepared me for it. I read the final lines of her letter. Madison, never confuse kindness with weakness. You can forgive someone without allowing them back into your life. You can love someone and still walk away. And most importantly, never let anyone convince you that your worth depends on what you own. I pressed the letter against my chest. Nathan stepped toward me. Madison, I am sorry. I looked at him. This time I believed that he was sorry. But being sorry could not erase what he had done. You knew my mother was protecting me. I said, and you still tried to take advantage of me. He lowered his head. I made terrible choices. You made them repeatedly. He had nothing left to say. Then Vivian approached. Madison, please don't destroy our family. I looked at her calmly. I am not destroying your family. I am simply refusing to carry it anymore. The ballroom became silent again. I handed the documents back to the attorney. I want the trust to continue exactly as my mother intended. He smiled. It will, and I want every woman who needs help to have access to it. He nodded. Your mother would be proud. I looked around the ballroom. The same people who had watched me being humiliated were now watching me with respect. But I didn't need their respect anymore. I had finally learned to respect myself. I walked toward the exit. Nathan remained behind. He didn't follow me. For the first time, he understood that he had truly lost me. Outside the ballroom, the waiter was waiting. He smiled and held the door open. Your mother was a remarkable woman. I smiled through my tears. She was. He looked at me. And you are just like her. I stepped outside into the warm Charleston evening. Behind me, the wedding continued. But my marriage was over, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I thought the hardest part was finally behind me. I was wrong. Because the next morning, a package arrived at my house. There was no return address, only 3 words written across the front. You are not safe. I stared at the package for several seconds. You are not safe. Those 3 words were written in black ink. My first thought was Nathan. Then I remembered the look on his face when I walked away. He had looked defeated, not angry. Still, I did not open the package. I called the attorney. He answered immediately. Tell me exactly what happened. I described the package. There was a long silence. Then he said, Madison, do not open it. My heart began racing.
Why?
Because your mother received a similar package 6 years ago. I froze. What was inside hers? Nothing. The attorney paused. That was the problem. It was completely empty. I looked at the package on my kitchen table. Then why would someone send it? To scare her, I whispered. Exactly. A few minutes later, the waiter arrived at my house. I was surprised to see him. How did you know? The attorney called me. He said, I should not leave you alone. The waiter looked at the package. Then his expression changed. I have seen that handwriting before. Where? He pointed toward the envelope. Your mother's office. My stomach tightened. My mother had kept everything locked away. Letters, financial records, old photographs, documents she never wanted anyone else to see. I asked him, what did she hide? He looked at me carefully. Not what she hid, what she discovered. Before I could ask another question, my phone rang. It was Nathan. I almost ignored the call, but something told me to answer. Madison. His voice sounded different. I need to warn you. About what?
My father.
I stopped breathing. What about Graham? Nathan lowered his voice. He knew about the trust. He knew about your mother's plan, and he's furious that you now control everything. I looked at the waiter. He immediately understood. Where is your father? I asked. Nathan hesitated. I don't know, but I know where he is going. Where? I stared at the photograph. Nathan was standing beside Graham, but the third man was someone I had never seen before. I turned the photograph over. On the back, my mother's handwriting appeared. His name is Daniel Mercer. Do not trust him. I felt a chill run through me. I looked at the waiter. Do you know him? The waiter nodded slowly. I have seen him before. Where? At our mother's office. My heart began pounding. Why would my mother keep a file about him? The waiter pointed toward the folder. Keep reading. I opened the next document. It was a copy of an old business agreement. Daniel Mercer had been working with Graham Ashford for years, but the agreement contained something even more disturbing. They had been moving money through several companies. One of those companies had received money from my mother's nonprofit. I looked at the numbers, millions of dollars. My mother had been investigating them. She discovered that someone had been stealing money from organizations that helped vulnerable women, and the Ashfords were connected to it. I could barely breathe. Nathan knew about this. The waiter shook his head. I don't know. I opened another file. There was a handwritten note. Nathan may not know everything, but his father does. Then I found another photograph. It showed Graham meeting Daniel outside a bank. The date was written underneath, 3 months before my wedding. I suddenly remembered something. Nathan had told me his father wanted to meet my mother before our wedding. He said it was only a courtesy, but my mother had refused. Now I knew why. She had discovered what they were doing, and she had been protecting me. I turned to the final page. There was one sentence written in bold letters. If anything happens to me, give this evidence to Madison. I closed my eyes. My mother had been afraid. A sound suddenly came from upstairs. Footsteps. The waiter immediately turned off the flashlight. Someone was inside the building. We stood completely still. Another sound echoed through the hallway. A door slammed. Then a man's voice called out, Madison. My blood ran cold. It was Graham. the waiter whispered. Do not answer. We moved quietly toward the back of the basement. There was another door hidden behind the filing cabinet. I opened it. It led into a narrow passageway. We stepped inside. Behind us, we heard Graham entering the basement. He spoke again. Madison, I know you're here. The waiter closed the hidden door. We stood in darkness. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then Graham shouted, Your mother should have stayed out of our business. I covered my mouth. The waiter looked at me. His expression was serious. Now you know why your mother left the key. We waited until the footsteps disappeared. Then we moved through the passageway. It led outside behind the building. I immediately called the attorney. He answered. Did you find the file?
Yes.
I found everything. There was a pause. Then he said, Madison, you need to leave Charleston tonight.
Why?
Because if Graham knows you have those documents, he will do anything to get them back. I looked down at the folder in my hands. For years, I had believed my biggest problem was a husband who was ashamed of me. Now I understood. Nathan had only been the beginning. The real danger was his father.
The evidence my mother left behind.
Before we left, I opened the folder one last time. A final document was hidden beneath the photographs. It was a letter addressed to me. I opened it. Madison. There is one person you can trust. I read the name, and my heart stopped because the person my mother had named was someone I never expected. Nathan Ashford. I stared at Nathan's name for several seconds. I could not understand what I was seeing. Nathan, the man who had humiliated me, the man who had lied to me, the man who had made me feel worthless. My mother had written that he was the one person I could trust. It didn't make sense. The waiter looked at me. What does the letter say? I handed it to him. He read the first few lines, then looked at me. Your mother knew something about Nathan that you didn't. I opened the letter again. Madison, if you are reading this, then Nathan has finally been forced to choose between his family and you. I know you will be angry with him. You should be. He made mistakes, but he is not the man you think he is.
I stopped reading.
The waiter asked, Are you okay? I shook my head. I don't know. I continued. Nathan discovered what his father was doing months before your wedding. He tried to stop him, but Graham threatened him. He told Nathan that if he exposed the truth, he would destroy the family. Nathan was afraid. He made the wrong choice. Instead of protecting you openly, he stayed silent. My eyes filled with tears. That didn't excuse what he had done. But suddenly, everything looked different. The strange financial agreement, his nervous behavior around his father, the way he always avoided conversations about family money. There had been signs. I simply hadn't known how to read them. Then my phone rang. Nathan, I answered. Where are you? He asked. I didn't answer. He continued. Madison, you found the file. How do you know? Because my father is looking for it. I looked at the waiter. Nathan, did you know about my mother's investigation? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was trying to protect you by humiliating me. His voice cracked. I know I failed you. I was terrified. You should have trusted me. I did. For a moment, he was silent. Then he said, I still do. I closed my eyes. Where are you? At the old Ashford estate. Why? Because my father knows I have the original evidence. My heart dropped. What evidence? The evidence that can put him in prison. The waiter immediately moved closer. Nathan, are you safe? No. A loud crash sounded through the phone. Then Nathan whispered, Madison, listen carefully. Do not come here. I am going to get the evidence to the attorney. Nathan, I shouted. The call suddenly ended. I tried calling again. No answer. The waiter looked at me. We have to go. I shook my head. My mother trusted him. Then we trust him too. We drove toward the Ashford estate. The entire journey was silent. When we arrived, the gates were open. There were no security guards. The house was dark. I stepped out of the car. Nathan, no answer. We entered through the front door. The house was empty. Then I heard something upstairs. The door slammed. I ran toward the staircase. The waiter followed. At the end of the hallway, I found Nathan. He was standing beside a broken cabinet. Blood was running from his forehead. I rushed toward him. What happened? He looked at me. My father took the evidence. I looked around. Where is he? Nathan pointed toward the window. He left through the back. Then he handed me a small black box. My mother had this. Inside was a flash drive. I stared at it. What is on it? Everything. Nathan whispered. Every payment, every secret account, every person involved, including my father. I looked at him. Why did you keep this? Because I knew one day you would need the truth. I wanted to believe him. But then I noticed something. The box had a second compartment. Inside was another photograph. Nathan looked at it. His face suddenly changed. Madison. What?
He whispered.
My father wasn't working alone. I turned the photograph over. There was a name written on the back. Vivian Ashford. I looked at Nathan. Your mother. He nodded slowly. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. She was the one who started it.